Hello and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. We all want the most premium players we can get in our team. We want Salah, we want Haaland, we want Palmer, we want Saka. But in order to do that, we need some cheap players in our team as well. So in this one, we're going to be looking at some budget enablers that can make sure we can fit in all the premiums we want. Okay, now the first player is a very popular one. He's in over 30% of teams. It's Wan-Bissaka from West Ham. And he's popular for a good reason, to be honest. He played 36 games last year, so he's pretty nailed. Walker-Peters has been signed by West Ham, but I don't see Wan-Bissaka losing minutes from him. And Wan-Bissaka got the most assists out of all of the 4.5 million defenders last season. So I just think he represents really, really good value, given that he is pretty attacking because he's playing as a wing-back. He also will be good for defensive contribution points because we know he's a really, really good 1v1 defender. West Ham weren't great defensively last season, so clean sheets might be a bit hard to come by. However, I do think they will improve this season, and with his attacking numbers and defensive contribution points, I think that he's just worth it. The fixtures are okay to start. Sunderland away is obviously nice in game week 1. Chelsea, Nottingham Forest not so much, but then Tottenham, Crystal Palace is a little bit better. West Ham also have a new wing-back. They signed Udogie Diouf, who's a left wing back, and he cost them around 19 million. He is also a 4.5 million option for us. He looks incredibly attacking. We've seen him in one of the recent pre-season games whipping a couple of crosses into Bowen and Füllkrug. Füllkrug should benefit quite a lot from Udogie Diouf because he's got a fantastic delivery, and if Füllkrug can get on the end of it, then both of those guys will be scoring a lot of points. So I don't think it matters which one of these guys you go with. Maybe Wan-Bissaka's a bit more nailed, but either way, they're both very, very good value for 4.5 million. Okay, next up we're looking at Spurs defenders, and in particular, Udogie and Van de Ven. Porro is a bit expensive at 5.5 million, and Romero is also 5 million, so Udogie and Van de Ven are the two budget guys at 4.5 million. I think that they, especially Udogie, has come in a little bit cheap. I would have expected him to come in at 5 million, the same as Romero. Now, the one thing with Udogie is we haven't seen any pre-season minutes from him. He has got a knock. I mean, it is precautionary, although he didn't go on the pre-season tour for Spurs, meaning that there's actually only a couple of games for him to get pre-season minutes. So if we don't see any minutes from him soon, then it does make it difficult to pick him for game week 1. But if we can't pick him, then we can pick Van de Ven instead. I mean, last season he only managed 13 appearances. He did get quite a big injury, so that is the main reason why he didn't get as many minutes. But what you can see here, interestingly, is that the attacking numbers are actually not too different between these players, which is slightly worrying from Udogie's side of things, given that he is the fullback, he is the more attacking guy. He also played almost double the amount of games. But Van de Ven had more shots than him, more shots on target, more assists, more shots in the box, more XG, more big chances. So, and by no means are Van de Ven's numbers typically good. It's just Udogie's numbers were pretty bad last season. I do think that will change. I think we will see a more attacking version of him. But either way, with Spurs' opening fixtures of Burnley, City, Bournemouth, and the fixtures are quite nice after that as well, I think that a Spurs defender for 4.5 million is pretty good value. Right, on to midfielders now, and Elliot Anderson is one that I've mentioned in quite a few videos so far. If you don't know much about him, then 37 appearances last season, which for a kind of central midfielder makes sense. They're usually quite nailed, and the numbers are nothing to write home about really. 2 goals, 6 assists, 40 shots, which isn't bad, 1 a game. Shots in the box 21. Anyway, all these numbers are kind of okay, but the thing that is really nice about him is these new defensive contribution points. So last season he was second for defensive contribution points behind Caicedo out of all midfielders. So he is definitely one to be looking at if you're looking for a budget player. He's only 5.5 million, so he isn't going to cost you much. he should be pretty nailed, which is what we want from these cheap players. And with Elanga going to Newcastle, there is a world where he could be on some set pieces, some corners, maybe not so much free kicks because probably Gibbs White will be on them. But Elanga was on a lot of corners last season, and we did see Elliot Anderson take one or two. So maybe he will now assume that set piece duty. But I don't need to say too much more about Elliot Anderson. I think he's pretty popular. I'm not sure of his actual ownership, but at this point he is pretty popular. We all know that these defensive contribution points are going to be big, especially because the players that get them are usually slightly more defensive midfielders, meaning that they're usually quite nailed for minutes, and that should be the case here. He's just a safe option who will grab a goal, a couple of assists throughout the season, and he will tick along with a few defensive contribution points. It would have been 36 extra points for him last season if the defensive contribution points were in play. So again, he's just a nice safe budget option. If you're looking for a more attacking player at 5.5 million instead of the likes of Anderson, who are more defensive and will get defensive contribution points, then Adingra is one to be looking at. Now, his numbers here aren't great, but that will be because he didn't start that many games for Brighton last season. Mitoma, Minte, Gruder were all kind of getting more minutes than him on the wing. But now he has moved to Sunderland during this summer transfer window, and he seems to be getting quite a lot of pre-season minutes, and he's also performing pretty well. He's got a few goals and a couple of assists, so he is doing well in pre-season. So I would expect those numbers to be better this year just because he'll get more minutes. Now, those fixtures along the bottom are wrong. That's because he's now transferred to Sunderland. Sunderland's fixtures are West Ham at home, Burnley away, Brentford at home, Crystal Palace away and Villa at home. So those first 5 are really nice. And they don't actually play a top or traditional top 6 team until game week 9, which is Chelsea. So he could be a really nice budget option. And we're going to be wildcarding pretty early, I think, anyway, given the amount of chips we've got and the transfers. So because they don't play a big team for quite a long time, you can play him most weeks up until game week 9. So you could actually just hold him, play him, and then wildcard him out when his fixtures get worse. So yeah, if you're looking for a more attacking player at 5.5 million, then Adingra is probably the one to go for. Now, I won't spend too long on this one, but Baleba is also a really good option, especially if you can't get to the 5.5 million mid options. Baleba is actually 5 million. So he's obviously a defensive midfielder for Brighton. You won't get many goals and assists, as you can see, 3 goals, 1 assist. It's actually not bad for a player in his position. However, he will again be good for defensive contribution points. He was up there with the likes of Anderson, with the likes of Caicedo for defensive contribution points last season, and he should be pretty nailed for Brighton. He played a lot of games last season, as you can see, 34, so I think that's pretty safe. So if you want someone really budget and you haven't got 5.5 million to go to Anderson or Adingra, then Baleba is probably the one to look at. Okay, now we're on to the forwards, and these two guys, Welbeck and Strand Larsen, are both 6.5 million, which doesn't sound too budget, but in the forwards pool, there isn't a load of forwards underneath 6.5 million that are really viable. Unless we get some transfers, like if Wissa leaves Brentford, then they've got a striker called Igor Thiago, who could become a really nice option. Fulkrug is 6 million, who's not a bad option, but Wilson's there now, so whether or not Wilson will take minutes off him, we're not sure, but I don't mind Fulkrug to start the season. However, at 6.5 million, these two guys are very good. Now, the reason they're very good is because they're in quite a similar situation. So they started a lot of last season up front, and they both have pretty good numbers, both close to 10 XG. Welbeck got 10 goals, 5 assists. Strand Larsen got 14 goals, 4 assists. Both play quite a lot of games. But the reason they're similar is that, so at Brighton, João Pedro was the penalty taker. Welbeck was the penalty taker when João Pedro was not on the pitch. João Pedro is now gone. So Welbeck should be the guy that takes penalties now at Brighton. And with João Pedro gone, there are less players to take minutes off of Welbeck. So I think he'll start most games up front, and I think he'll be on penalties as well. The fixtures aren't the best. Fulham, Everton, Man City. It's not great after that. But he is one that you can just kind of set and forget, knowing he's on penalties. Strand Larsen, similarly, Cunha sometimes started up front, sometimes started on the left with Strand Larsen playing, but Cunha was most likely on penalties for Wolves. Wolves didn't actually get a penalty last season, but it was most likely that Cunha would have taken it if they did. Now Cunha's gone obviously to Man United, so Strand Larsen should probably be in line to be the penalty taker. Again though, the fixtures after game week 1 are okay, but Man City at home isn't ideal in game week 1. But if you can bench him and you've got a good, say, 4.5 million defender like Wan-Bissaka or Juve who play Sunderland, then Strand Larsen is a really good option from game week 2 onwards. So these two guys are really nice. I probably wouldn't go with both unless you really wanted a lot of premiums, but I think one of these guys is a really good option to have in your team. Right, the last player we're looking at now is Beto, and I mentioned that there isn't many options under kind of 6 million. Well, there isn't really any options under 6 million apart from potentially Beto. Now, he was pretty good when called upon last season. He got 8 goals, as you can see. It says 30 appearances, but a lot of those were sub appearances at the start of the season. His numbers were pretty good when he did play, and Everton's fixtures are quite nice to start the season. Leeds away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, Aston Villa at home. That run of 4 is pretty good. Now, he is 5.5 million. The reason for that, I believe, is that Everton have signed a new striker called Tierno Barry, and they've paid a fair amount of money for him. So it's not 100% guaranteed that Beto is going to be the starter. However, in pre-season, we have seen Beto get a lot of the minutes. He's been starting the games, and some of them he's even been playing 70 odd minutes. So I do think that at least to start the season, he will probably be the starter at Everton up front. However, as the season goes on, it's probably quite likely that him and Barry will share minutes. So I do think he's a good budget option for now. And certainly if you're playing Bench Boost 1 or something like that, then he is one to consider because they've got Leeds away. So yeah, I do think that he could be a good budget option to start, but I'm not sure he's great long term. Anyway, that is all for this video. If you did like it, do hit like, do subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.